Okay, we're gonna do something different. Lately, I've been having a pretty bad art block. Drawing has been feeling like a chore, so I want to spice something up by doing an art challenge. Can I paint without a sketch? This is gonna go either okay or really bad, because I start all my illustrations with a sketch. So to switch my brain to skipping that step might be, well, it might be a bit of an adjustment, but that's why it's called a challenge, right? If you enjoy this kind of content, feel free to subscribe and like the video and comment what other challenges I should give a try. Here is the reference I'm going to use that I pulled out from Pinterest, which, by the way, if you haven't watched my recent video, I talked about how AI has pretty much been taking over Pinterest, and Pinterest added a new feature of removing AI, so feel free to give that a watch. First things first, let's put down some colors. I'm going to put a background color. No reason for this, I just don't want to look at a white blank canvas. I don't like having to work with a pure black background, which is what the reference photo is giving me, but most of the times I use a very saturated dark blue color or a dark brown color. Yeah, I don't really like to work with pure blacks. It just feels like it dilutes the entire illustration. I won't lie, this feels so weird to start without a sketch. It feels wrong. Especially years ago when I first picked up art, I started out with inks. More specifically, I started posting on social media with watercolors and black ink. I studied a lot of manga and comic artists growing up, which helped me understand line work, line weight, even anatomy. So sketching has become pretty much a comfort zone, but also a crutch. I would have a solid sketch, but when I get to painting, the colors would look muddy or just off in some way. When I started learning values and colors and color theory in general, it made it even more confusing, including how to add that knowledge to my work. What helped the most in understanding color and relation between warm and cool is by using references, specifically movie scene studies. And then it just clicked. There's definitely more about color theory that I'm still learning about, but I'm happy with the amount of success and improvement I made over the years. I still sketch my pieces mainly because I enjoy it. In fact, I enjoyed it so much that I would look up specific brushes that when I hit the rendering part of the process, it still feels like I'm sketching. This brush in particular that I'm using, love the texture effect that it gives me, and also allows me to, when I press very gently on the canvas, it's very light, so almost like you can easily blend the colors in. And if I press down on the pen very rough or press down on the pen very harshly, it gets more of a darker edge, so gives me more of a soft edge control. This brush is very old. I think I downloaded it back in 2022. I found it from an artist on ArtStation, and before you ask, unfortunately the brush or the brush pack that it came with, it no longer exists. This challenge is forcing me to tap into values, hues. Usually in the sketching phase, I already block out the shadows, so now I have to rely a little bit on the reference of where that sits. Honestly, this is activating more of my brain cells, which, by the way, I'm drawing this on a Friday. On a Friday at 5 p.m. Your girl might as well just check out, because there is one functioning brain cell that's working right now, and it's working overtime. One thing I do want to know when doing studies like this, I encourage you to not use the color picker tool. Guessing the colors will help you understand the relationship of warm and cool. That, and you might accidentally discover some really cool color combos that you haven't discovered before, which is a great way to add to your color palette. I made a lot of awesome color palettes from doing this, and I kind of collected over the years. One thing I will say about this reference, it's really cool because it has a lot of harsh shadows and harsh lighting, which is Very interesting, and it was very saturated colors, which is what I lean a little bit more to it. The bad thing is, which is this is my issue with Pinterest, is that it gets recycled a lot. So like I said, you probably seen this reference before. Like I've seen it a lot on Twitter. A lot of people use it for warm-ups or just want to use it as a practice. Oh my god, I just realized something. Oh my god, I just made a mistake. I'm doing all of this in one layer. Oh my god. Well, too late. We're sticking with it. I'm already too far in this piece as is. So for the rendering part, since I just combine all the layers, so I'm pretty much speed running my process at this point. I always combine all the layers and then make finishing touches. By the way, I don't suggest doing this to a beginner artist unless you have a painting background. Because if you have a painting background, then you have a canvas and then you have your paints down and then you can always readjust. In the past, I used to be very strict with my colors, using a lot of airbrush, but I've been leaning more towards the sketchy loose paint that a lot of major artists and films are leaning more to. Some non-artists call it the Spider-Verse effect. Not entirely correct, but not wrong either. Regardless what you call it, it makes the process so much more enjoyable and experimental as well. It forces me to worry less on the clean lines and the rendering and make it loose and sketchy. It doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical. It doesn't have to be perfect colors, perfect line art. It could be out of the line. It's very loose, very messy, very, I don't know, just very you. That's kind of like one of the things that I love so much about the Spider-Verse, which creates a fun new way of making art. In my case, it's nice to work on colors and rendering that feels similar to sketching. In fact, that's the reason why rendering is so much more enjoyable to me now. It even helps me learn faster as well. It goes to show the best way of learning is doing it your way. Because you might pick up things faster, learn how the process works easier, but most importantly, just having fun with the process altogether. A lot of the brushes I use are very textured. I actually bought my first professional drawing tablet about a month ago and was working on transferring my Procreate brushes to Clip Studio Paint. Unfortunately, heads up if you started out in Procreate and you're switching over and you want to have a professional drawing tablet, you can't just drag and drop the brushes from Procreate to Clip Studio Paint or to Adobe Photoshop. Unfortunately, and I have gone down the rabbit hole, you have to recreate it or purchase the brush back again for the program version you want to use it in. I just realized that the face needs to be more tilted. It's too like straightforward when really the face is actually turning. So I need to use the liquefied tool to correct the eye line so that the left eye is higher than the right eye. This is why it's so hard, because I usually catch this during the sketching stage, but since I'm skipping the sketching stage altogether, my piece is looking very one-dimensional. At least in the bright side, this is allowing me to focus on value, maybe a little too much since I kind of like skipped the sketching part, but now my anatomy feels like a very wonky. That's the beauty of the sketching phase. You get to fix the anatomy and perfect it, and then you get over to the painting stage. Part of the reason why I love this reference so much is just the hair. I love drawing hair. I'm so excited to get to the rendering of the lighting and the shadows here. I love using the texture brush to softly render the colors so that it can slowly transition from light to dark. This brush is like heavily edited, but this was the one that originally belonged to a brush pack that I founded from the artist in ArtStation. Okay, at this point, I've been on this painting for way too long. I'm at the 1 hour mark. I think it's time to wrap this up. I'm gonna add some finishing touches. I'm the kind of artist who doesn't like to work on pieces over 2 hours unless, and only unless, I'm really into the piece. One piece, for example, is the Arcane fan art I did of Isha last year, which I'm so happy that it was well received, because that piece helped me got out of art block as well. It goes to show that sometimes all you need to get back in the swing of things is to draw a little fan art. So I'm adding some finishing touches by working on the eyelashes and adding some texture on the hair. I don't usually use the rake brush for the hair, but I tried a few strokes and you know what, I really like it. And here's the final piece. I won't lie, this was a pretty good challenge to tackle. If I didn't do it all on one layer, I think I would have a much better experience. Yeah, this kind of kicked my butt. But yeah, this is the finished piece. If you made it all the way this far, you deserve a brownie or a cookie. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you're interested, feel free to subscribe, like, comment if you enjoyed the piece, comment if my piece is trash, comment if you just want to see something new. Other than that, drink your water. I don't know how to end these videos.